and happy to have you do this to help, is to get the word out there to parents that were as clueless as we once were. I'm assuming you
Oh
were just
yes,
as clueless as.
definitely.
Okay. Yep. So what we're going to do is, if you want to start with some things that you noticed maybe before October, when he was diagnosed, things that made you kind of go, okay, is this something? Is this not something? And then if you want to touch, really quickly on how he was
Okay.
diagnosed.
Like I noticed him acting really different. Like we went on vacation in May of last year, and like I noticed, he was acting a little funny, sleeping more.
In May.
Yes, in May.
So that would have been June, July, August, September, October, 5 months before he was
Yep.
diagnosed. Okay.
In May,
Got
he was sleeping more, and I was, as a mom, you're like, oh, maybe he's just growing again. It's just by that, just one symptom, him sleeping more. And then
it.
as the
Okay.
summer went by, he started getting wasn't stop sleeping as much, and then he started playing more. He was outside doing regular boy things, playing in the mud, eating all the time, stuff like that. And then
Okay. So he was 7 then.
yes, that's when he was 7.
Okay.
Yeah. And then about I want to say July, he started slowing down. He started where he was sleeping more. He went back to sleeping. He was sleeping. He stopped eating as much, and he was thirsty all the time. And
In July.
yeah, that's in July. And then
Okay.
come
Okay.
August, he had a doctor's appointment, and then we went to the doctor. The doctor never picked it up. I told her what was going on, and she was like, "Oh no, maybe that's just he's just going through a phase." I was like, "Okay, well maybe that's what it is." And then
Wow. So this was in August.
in August, yes.
So 2 months before he was officially
Mhm.
diagnosed, there was already a red flag in your
Yep.
mind. You're at the pediatrician's office.
And something was
I
not
hate to
right.
hear this. I hate to hear this. You mention it.
Mhm.
And what did the pediatrician
The
say?
pediatrician told me it was a phase he was going through because he's 7, wetting the bed is normal around that age. But I'm like, he's never wet the bed before. He stopped wetting the bed when he was maybe 4 years old. So
Oh,
yeah, it was, yeah, just seeing going through that. And then my oldest son would go to football practice, and all the parents and all the kids would be sitting out there, and Aiden would normally go where the other boys was at and play football and throw the ball with them and run and play and all that stuff. And he stopped doing that. He would slowly walk around the track. He wouldn't play with his sister. He would just slowly walk around the track. And I told him, I said, come here, buddy, come sit in my lap. And he came and sat in my lap. I said, are you feeling okay? What's going on? He was like, I don't know, mommy. I don't know. And he didn't know.
no,
Yeah, it was scary.
Oh,
Like he didn't know. And like a few days later, and this is mid-September, I'm calling the doctor. Hey, he's still, doing the same thing. I don't know what's going on. She's like, okay, well, we'll make an appointment. Went to the appointment. Everything's good. He checks out normal. She didn't do any blood work on him though. So I think if she did the blood work then, she would have caught it.
yeah.
But there was no blood
Oh,
work.
yeah.
It was listen to the lungs, the heart, check for, if he's hurting anywhere, no, he's fine. He's fine. He's normal.
Oh. And again, you went over the symptoms
Exactly.
again in
Drinking
September.
a lot, he's wet in the bed, just random stuff, like stuff he never does. And like, come, let's say the beginning of October, I noticed he started losing weight. He had lost
Okay.
he started dropping weight, and I was like, that's not normal because he's always been kind of a chubby kid. So he starts dropping the weight, and I was like, okay, this isn't normal. And then his teacher at school was getting a hold of me. Hey, Aiden's sleeping in class. Aiden seems like he's not feeling very good. Is he running fever? I'm like, he's not running fever. And I don't know. He's sleeping at night. He goes to bed like he normally would. He's just tired during the day a lot, and he couldn't focus at school. Him and his baby sister are in the same class. And even his sister was like, Mommy, Aidie's sleeping in class and he's not paying attention. And I said, okay, no, that's not right. And so the next day we go to our football practice like we normally do. And he was just out of it. We got home from football practice and he slept and slept and slept and slept. And I said, nope, we're going back to the doctor. I said, this is the day we were diagnosed.
So this is the third doctor
Yes.
visit.
Yes. I said, no, I'm making a doctor's appointment. So the day I made the doctor's appointment was when we got home from football practice. I called the doctor immediately. I was like, hey, we need to get in tomorrow, like in the morning. And she was like, okay, we'll see you in the morning. So he slept from, we'll say, 5 o'clock that evening until 9 o'clock the next morning when I woke him up. Mm-hmm.
Were you horrified at this point?
I was terrified because his breathing had gotten weird. Like he was like panting like a dog. Like just he couldn't catch his breath. And then him sleeping like that. And then my mother-in-law, she's a type 1 diabetic. And
okay. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we called her over. We're like, hey, do you mind coming to check him? You know, just to be sure, you know, this is not what this is. Because in my mind, I'm like, this is what this is. I don't know what told me it was diabetes, but something told me that he has diabetic symptoms right now. And
okay.
She come over and she checked in on her meter, and all it said was high. We had no idea what that meant. I had never done it before. I've always gotten a number when we checked previously with, you know, just playing around with it. It just said high. We checked it 3 times within a 30-minute period, and every time it said high.
Okay, what did you do after that?
After that, we just kind of hung out the rest of the night. We kept him awake, you know, make sure he was alert and stuff. And then the next day, we're at the doctor's appointment.
Right.
So we're at the doctor's appointment. I said, look, this is what's happening. He's been sleeping for hours. I said, he can't breathe. He can't catch his breath. And of course, this is amid COVID. So she's going, oh, maybe he's got COVID. I said, no, this is not COVID. I said, he hasn't had a fever, nothing. I said, he's sleeping. He can't breathe. He can't seem to get enough to drink. I said, he's wet in the bed and he's never done that before. I said, something is wrong. That is not how my child acts. I said, he's dropped 10 pounds in a week.
Did you tell him about the finger prick?
I told her, so we pricked his finger and all it said was high. And she was like, okay, that's the sign I need. And I was like, but I've given you all these other symptoms over the last 3 doctor's appointments. So she was like, well, that's what I need to know. And her nurse came in and said, well, if he was doing that, she said, I feel like y'all should have took him to the ER because he was going in and out of a coma.
They told you that's what
what it was. He was fighting off a coma.
So did you go to the ER?
Well, the doctor told us to pack a bag. She had already had a room for him and everything at the hospital. So
did you get an official glucose? What was his level?
It was 793.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then according to when we got to the hospital, they ran his A1C, all that. His A1C was 14.7.
Wow. Okay, so what was he looking like at this point?
He was really skinny. His skin, he's really light complected. His skin was gray, and it was he had turned gray, and it was just bad. Like I could tell something was wrong. And another one of the doctors said his hi buddy. This is him.
Hi. How are you? Look at that sweet little face. How do you feel today?
Better. Good.
Better. Are you having a good day today?
This was in my jacket.
Okay.
What did
he
you
had
say?
found an apple and said this was in my jacket.
Oh.
But yeah, he had turned gray and like his skin had started feeling real. I don't know. It wasn't soft anymore. It was just kind of rough.
Mm-hmm.
It affected him in a weird way. Like he was drying out almost.
Huh.
Yeah, and the doctor said, but when we got there, she was like, yeah, his kidneys had already started to shut down.
Oh my God.
So he was in a sense dying by the time we got him to the hospital.
How long did he stay there for?
We were there for a week.
Intensive care?
Yeah, we were
Wow.
in there for a week, and then we were on a slow insulin slow drip at first. And then when they got him down to where he could actually wake up and was, can talk and stuff, they started giving him his insulin pen and making sure he knew how to do it. And that's when the education started. The life-saving part is what had to happen first before we could start our education.
Yeah.
So, but it was pretty intense for those first few days. Like he was in and out of it. He had no idea where he was. He was, mommy, what's going on? It was scary.
thing. And you do wonder when they're that age and when they're that young, what do they think is
Mhm.
happening? What do they think is going on? What do they think is wrong? Did he say anything to you when you got to the hospital? Was he scared? Was he just
He
feeling so bad
was.
that
He
he
was
hardly?
scared and he was crying and mommy, I don't know what's going on and I don't want to be. He had already gotten IVs put in his arms where they had already drew the blood and he was crying, I don't want to get poked with needles anymore, and he was really upset.
So does he still go to that same pediatrician?
Every once in a while, but right now me personally, I'm more comfortable going to his diabetic nurse because she does everything. She has been great. She checks his blood sugar all the time. She'll call me just out of the blue. Hey, I'm looking at his clarity on through Dexcom, and I'm noticing he's high a lot. What's going on? So she checks all the
Really?
time. I think I've seen the pediatrician twice. Yeah.
Wow. So in August, you knew
Something
something
was
was.
wrong. Yes, way wrong.
Oh, that's. I hate to hear that. I mean, I'm so happy that you're sharing
Oh yeah.
this, but like it's just, again, I mean, I don't know. Would you call that a misdiagnosis or a diagnosis too late? How does that,
I would
how
feel
would you?
like a little bit of both, maybe. Because, like, I'm, as the parent, you're giving them all these symptoms, this is what's happening. This is what I feel like is going on. And then there's nothing that's being kind of shoved off as, oh, well, it's just a phase. So you're,
So that first visit in August when you left there, you probably felt dismissed.
I did.
And then in September when you came back,
Mm-hmm.
were you getting irritated by this
I
point or
was
just?
very irritated. I said, my next step before we made that final appointment was I'm just going to take him to the ER and see what happens. But at that point, I was scared of the ER because, of course, COVID. So,
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to take him there. And then we get something worse coming out of the hospital. So I'm
Right.
like, I was kind of stuck in a rock and hard place at that point. So,
Yeah, you were.
so it was
Wow.
a lot of hard decisions had to be made really fast.
Yeah. So, okay, let's just recap for hopefully this video gets shared and it gets to parents, those parents that are just clueless, but like you, you were doing something about it. You were voicing your concerns back in August, and he was diagnosed in October. So just really quickly, even though you already shared the story, just kind of boom, 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 recap what you first saw just really quickly.
The first signs I saw was him sleeping a lot. Sleeping,
okay,
uncontrollable thirst, just could not get enough to drink, wet in the bed. For kids that don't normally wet in the bed is an immediate sign. That's what I picked up on, was wet in the bed.
Yeah. And then by the time you get to September, you see he's starting to drag a little bit. Cassie did that. She's never been a morning person, but in the mornings to get her out the door on time, the fact that we live about 2 minutes from the elementary school then is probably what saved her from being late at least 3 times a week.
Oh my goodness.
She was dragging. Oh, she was dragging.
Yeah.
It was like hard to get her out the door and up and on time. But I did actually, when you mentioned that his teacher reached out to you, I did remember that I got an email from Cassie's teacher saying she was putting her head down in class. And I remember thinking she's never done that before. And I never had a teacher. This was in 5th grade for Cassie. And I never had a teacher tell me that. And then she was starting to complain of headaches. But the teacher did tell me Cassie's putting her head down in class.
Yeah, seeing that with him. He was
putting
his head down and falling asleep. And he would tell me his head was hurting, but I'm like, no, maybe it's just because he's tired. He stays up late. So maybe that's just it. But that was not the case at all.
Wow. So all those months. And then you tell me the number that he was in the ER.
793. And they told me prior months before that, he was even higher. Like he was in the 800s at one point. So I'm like, I don't know how they can tell that, but I mean.
They can, because Cassie's endo that was on duty, that became Cassie's endo told us the same thing. And I don't know if you heard that post or me say it before, but they said 3 months before she was diagnosed, and she was diagnosed in October, that they were able to tell for 3 months that she was already running high out of the normal range. And that's what scared me, because for 3 months we let them go to bed and let them go to sleep, and something was all, they were already high. And as you know, not every child that goes to bed in DKA wake up.
See, and
so
3 months prior to when his diagnosis, which would have been in August,
right, you were there.
Yeah, we were aware of it. But even before that, made me think as a parent, even when we've been on vacation, like, is that what was going on? I mean, when we come back from vacation and he wasn't feeling good, I mean, was that what was going on? It makes me think back to, when we were, going through all this, doing all the driving, like when he was asleep, was he in DKA at the time? I mean, it really makes you think, what were we doing at the time when he was going through this and we had no idea?
I know, it's just terrifying, the time, and in the 24 hours. Okay, so the day before he was diagnosed, that 24 hours, if you think back how rapidly he started to go downhill, how important that is. I noticed it in Cassie, and I think it becomes like a very small window where it can go from bad to worse really fast. So anything else you want to add or share? I know you have a lot to do today.
I just want to make people just aware, be on the lookout, even if, because we have 2 other children. And then now that we've had 1 diagnosed, we've been, every period we'll check the other 2s. We'll do a finger prick the other 2. So I'm like, it makes you more aware of what's around you. So like, it makes you think. It makes you think a lot more. Because like it's not type 2 where you get it just from not eating the way you're supposed to eat. This is completely different. This is an everyday thing. Like, he was born with it, and we didn't even have a clue. We didn't have a clue until the day he was diagnosed. And that's it. That's the scary part, is you can go to the doctor so many times, still nobody catches it until you're at that point to where it's between life and death,
Right. No, it is. It seems like, that's what I'm saying. It seems like a very small window where it goes from 0 to 60.
Yes.
And that's what's so frustrating. And that's why I created this group, and that's why I named it Before Aware, because there is that period where, if you would have pricked him probably in September,
we would have known. Yeah.
You would have pricked him in August.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
Yeah.
So it does. It makes you go back, because the 3 months before for Aiden is the same as Cassie's 3 months prior. They said it was July. So if you would have pricked him in August, you would have found out, and he wouldn't have been in intensive care for 5 days and, having his kidneys almost fail. It make you mad?
It does. Like, it's like, what, how did you not catch this? Like,
well, because you know what else is confusing, and I could stay here talking to you, but I'll wrap it up.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I think what's confusing to me is, you're told, well, we were told this when Cassie was diagnosed. Oh, they kind of give you the feeling that it's common. You know what I mean? Like, it's something that's and when Cassie returned back to school in her elementary school of 400, she's the only one with type 1, or her principal. Her principal has type 1. So she felt really alone, and you do feel like, well, we had never heard of it. And most people that are given the diagnosis in their family have never heard of type 1. I mean, you said you do have a relative with type 1.
My husband.
So you had a little bit of advantage there.
My dad is type 2.
Okay. So, but yeah, we didn't know. And then you think, oh, okay, they're making us feel a little bit better, saying how common it is. And they said a number, there's 1 point something million people, living with type 1 or whatever it is, whatever the number is. And then, okay, well, if it's that common, then how are all the pediatricians missing?
Exactly.
To prick their finger.
Exactly.
So then you're like, wait a second, which one is it? It can't be. So yeah. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for creating the group. I'm very thankful to be a part of it, because I know I've asked questions in there, and I've been able to support other parents that are just now, getting the diagnosis. So it's been helpful a lot. I tell my husband all the time, look what I found in the group.
Oh, that's so nice. Good. I'm happy to hear that. And we're doing these videos, and we're taking the time to share our story and let people that we don't know in such an intimate part of our life. It's a horrible moment that we go through, learning the diagnosis and then watching our kids. So we're opening ourselves up to do this for the reason that parents that hear it hopefully get their child gets spared of DKA, and we're doing that, but it has to be shared outside of this group, because we already know. So hopefully that happens, and we can prevent that horrific intensive care stay, and then even worse. So before it gets bad, I mean, it can be diagnosed, and it could just be a softer diagnosis, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just not such a harsh way to find out when
it shouldn't. I feel like it shouldn't be. It shouldn't come to the point of being in DKA before you get the
right.
It should be there. I feel like with the way technology is now, there should be a way to know like months before, like we said in August, there should be a way to just a protocol to where it's, hey, maybe we should just automatically prick the kid's finger.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And I don't understand, even, my suggestion was at, routine visits and sports physicals. And I mean, they still drag them up to their clinic, I think, to check for head lice or something. It's like a second finger prick. And not that every kid is going to love it, or whatever, but just do it really fast. Even if because if you would have had his finger pricked in August, say that was his back to school physical, you would have caught it.
We would have been way more prepared, and a lot. I mean, the education, like, it's a lot to take in, but it's life saving. So
yes, thank you so much, Lorena. Am I pronouncing your name correct? Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me do this.
No, I'm honored that you did it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and you have a good day.
You too. Just share this.
Yes, ma'am. I was getting ready to get off.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.